Mel Grills, and I'm serving as the chairman for the Contractor Common Interest Group. One of the CCIG's goals is to encourage sharing of current technology that can help improve your business. We thought expanding our annual webinar series to include tech webinars would be a great way to do this. This webinar is on the series, and we have several others, actually one other left remaining in this tech series. The next one will be after everybody's summer busy season. Hopefully you're slowing down a little bit, have the time to take a break and listen in on the Hunter Tech webinar on September 12th. That will be at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So mark your calendars and look for emails to follow to provide that more detail of exactly what they're going to be presenting. Also, the CCIG is working on presentations for the Irrigation Show, which will be held this year in sunny Phoenix from November 17th to the 21st. Please make plans to attend and look for more details as we near that date on what the CCIG is providing, and look forward to reaching out and touching our fellow contractors that you may have had a chance to visit with through these webinars. So really excited to hear what our Rainbird guys, we've got Doug and Greg in the wings ready to go, but let me introduce our IA State Affairs Director first, and Chad Forsey will do the introductions of our webinar presenters today. Chad?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chad Forsey, and I'm the State Affairs Director for the Irrigation Association, and I want to thank all of you for participating today in our webinar with Rainbird on the subject of new products and technology. And what I want to do today is introduce our speakers. But before I do that, just a couple of words about the webinar. During the webinar today, you're going to learn a lot. There's going to be a lot of great information. And if there's a specific question that you have, you can text it in during the webinar using the chat feature, or you can do it at the end. We're going to have some time for question and answers at the end of the session today. So we encourage you to write down your questions, or if you prefer, you can, at the end of the webinar, you can click the hand raise icon that enables you to raise your hand in our webinar, and then I'll be able to call on you, and you can read your question or state your question at that time when I open up your microphone to do so. So there's a couple of different ways to ask questions. We encourage you to do so. This is your opportunity today to get your questions answered and to learn a lot. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers. Doug Campbell is with Rainbird Corporation. He's a contractor account manager for the Southeast region, and he's been in that position for 10 years. And in this work, he works with contractors, distributors, landscape architects, and public agencies. Greg Palumbo is also with us today as a speaker for Rainbird. He is the Eastern Regional Sales Manager, and he has been in the position for 10 years and also works with contractors, distributors, landscape architects, and public agencies. And so, gentlemen, at this time, I'm going to hand it over to you for our presentation.
Okay, thanks, Chad and Mel. This is Doug Campbell. And first, I'd like to thank the IA for this opportunity. We really appreciate the invitation to come in and share with you some of the new products and technologies that Rainbird has recently released. So let's kind of just jump right into this. Let's take a look at the agenda. As I stated, I want to talk about some of the recently released products. And there's actually been a multitude of new products lately, and a lot of which we will not hit on today simply because of time. And those that we do hit on, I'll do it at somewhat of a high level. So if you have questions at the end of the presentation, please ask those at that time. I also want to kind of get into how we are encouraging water efficiency through a value line of products at a lower cost, and also kind of get into a whole new product category that Rainbird has recently gone into. But before I start that, I want to talk a little bit about why Rainbird is so focused on water conservation and why using water wisely is so important. You know, I think on the surface, a lot of times people view water as a very abundant resource. But quite frankly, the reality is, you know, really only about 98% of all water is salt water, 2% of this is held in snow and icebergs, and only 1% is actual freshwater. And the Earth's freshwater supply basically is just constantly being recycled. It evaporates and returns to the Earth in various forms like rain, snow, or ice. And a lot of this that's fallen either evaporates almost immediately or it pours into areas that are, inaccessible. And really only about 10% of the total rainfall on Earth is actually retrievable by humans. So when we look at this, the bottom line is that the global freshwater supply is fixed, but the population is not. The world's population keeps growing. Water consumption keeps growing every single year. And if we look back at the year 2000, the world population grew at that time to over 6 billion. And it's forecasted by 2030 to grow to over 8 billion. And of course, when you look at things like technology and lifestyle improvements, all of these things, put a damper on the water supply, as well as urbanization and manufacturing, greatly impacts the overall usage of water. If you look at just the United States alone, 40% of available water is used in industrial applications. And if you look at it on a residential level, U.S. residents use over 100 gallons of water per day. There's a lot of different options to address this freshwater supply issue, and they're all listed on this slide, from repricing to water reuse to desalinization to various transfer and delivery methods to alternate plant selections. And while all of these may come into play at some point or the other, I think it's pretty obvious that the one that kind of sticks out, the one that we can probably affect immediately with the least amount of expense, is using water more efficiently through efficient irrigation methods. And that's really what I want to focus on today. As I stated earlier, I want to really focus on what Rainbird has done in recent times with product development that are all geared toward water conservation, using water more wisely. And if you look back over the history of Rainbird, since 1933, we've been really a leader in developing products and technologies that are all geared toward using water very, very efficiently. But our commitment doesn't stop there. We get into things like education and training and various services for not only the irrigation industry, but also our communities. And we call this very focused approach on water conservation the intelligent use of water. Anytime you're a manufacturer of a product, you're selling to an end user, you're always having to ask yourself, is the product I'm making what the end user wants? Are they motivated by the product that I'm manufacturing? And in this case, Rainbird has to ask our question, is water efficiency motivating for our end users? And I think ultimately that answer is yes, but I mean it's different depending on who you are, where you are, what your circumstances are. For some people, having an automatic irrigation system may simply mean it's helping me to save money on my water bill. I'm not having to drag around a water hose in overuse with applying too much water. Or maybe it's helping me to not overwater or underwater and give me that lush landscape that I'm looking for. And others may simply see it as just, it's a means of helping me to comply with some of these confusing water restrictions. And we are actually starting to see some water efficient products throughout the various markets, from low flow shower heads and low flow toilets and even low flow faucets. But Rainbird has always thought that it's our industry, the irrigation industry, that should take that lead in managing this precious resource and promote water conservation through more efficient irrigation management. And over the course of Rainbird's history, as we've talked about, we have developed numerous types of water-saving products, from water-saving nozzles to sprays and rotors with pressure-regulating stems built in, to even smart control technology. And all of these deliver great results, superior results, and they do it actually with providing less water. So to kind of jump right into the product categories, Let's start off talking about a couple of spray nozzles and rotary nozzles. The first slide you see here is a HEVAN. And HEVAN stands for High Efficiency Variable Arc Nozzle. And it's actually the first high efficiency variable arc nozzle on the market. I know there's a lot of van nozzles, and Rainbird has a regular van nozzle as well, but they tend to not be overly water efficient. And if you start looking at some features with a HEVAN like flow control technology, it actually gives you something a lot of spray nozzles do not give you, superior close-in watering around that head. And it's also providing a very uniform coverage across the entire spray pattern. And if we were to compare a HEVAN against, any van nozzle, basically you could dramatically reduce zone run times, which helps to meet some tight watering windows that seem to be ever increasing everywhere, just simply by applying water more efficiently. And it's available from 0 to 360 degrees, so it fits any kind of shaped landscape you may have. It's available in various throws from 8, 10, 12, and 15 foot. And if we look at the picture here, if you look on the left-hand side, that's a picture of a HEVAN. On the right is a competitive van nozzle. Two things really stick out in terms of feature with this nozzle. The first one is the flow control technology that we talked about, and that's where you're seeing very superior close-in watering around the head versus a regular van nozzle where you're getting virtually no coverage near the head. The other is the uniform pattern. You see a very uniform pattern in the left-hand picture all throughout the radius. You really don't see water starting to hit the rest of the pattern until you get way out from the head with the regular van nozzle. Another thing that really is important when you're talking about water efficiency and spray nozzles is being able to be resistant to wind. I mean, wind is a huge factor, and it doesn't have to be real windy conditions. 2 to 3 mile per hour wind actually can impact a nozzle. So if you look at our water streams, they're very thick. The water droplets are very big, and the trajectory is fairly low. As you look at this picture, you can see the trajectory pretty much kind of levels out, whereas the van on the right almost continues to rise, and that puts that water pattern in danger of being really impacted by windy conditions. When I talk to contractors a lot, I think one of the biggest complaints I hear about a van is arc drift. And what I mean by arc drift is that pattern tends to drift into areas that aren't meant to be watered over time. And HEVAN actually has a really unique feature called exact edge technology that kind of eliminates this whole problem. And if you look in the top picture, you can see how you set the arc. You simply grab the collar like most vans. But unlike most vans, when you're twisting to set the arc, you're feeling a click. And what this click does is actually lock that arc into place. So it eliminates that overspray. If you look in the bottom picture, you see a blue line that goes across the bottom of that picture. Just imagine that dark area being the sidewalk. You're not seeing any overspray into that sidewalk area with a HEVAN. So this would be one example of many we'll talk about today, and others we won't get to, where Rainbird has taken a very popular item like a van nozzle and made it even easier to use and more efficient. Another nozzle I want to get into is the RVAN, and it's an adjustable rotary nozzle. And what I mean by adjustable rotary nozzle, the spray pattern and the distance itself can all be adjusted by hand. So you need no tools to make these adjustments. It's different from the HEVAN because it offers a rotating stream technology, and it's delivering water very uniformly at a low precip rate. So this kind of helps with some potential issues of runoff or erosion. But where it's like the HEVAN, it has those large water droplets, and it has the thick water streams and the low trajectory. And that's why at Rainbird, when we talk about being able to offer shorter run times with our RVANs than our competition, it's because the water is actually getting to its intended location without wind impacting its effectiveness, thus potentially having to increase your run times just to make sure you're applying enough water. And if we were to look at an RVan and just retrofitting an RVan with just a standard spray nozzle, you can really reduce flow by up to 60%. And the overall water efficiency actually goes up by 30% when you replace just a regular spray nozzle. Now, I kind of glossed over the fact that this is a fully adjustable, hand-adjustable product, and it's actually very important. No tools are required whatsoever to make adjustments. If you look in the top picture under arc pattern, you see a picture of a hand at the top of the RVan. Whenever the RVan pops up under pressure, you simply press down on the top and twist, and you can set the arc from 45 to 270 degrees. If you want to adjust the radius, there's a collar, just like with the just like with the HEVan, where you can grab the collar and either increase or decrease the radius. Now, one feature that's not actually shown in this picture that I think is pretty neat is looking at the top picture again, the way you set the arc. If you need to flush out this head, you can actually pull up instead of twisting. If you pull up, it actually flushes out the head. And the RVan is available in a 13 to 18 foot throw, as well as a 17 to 24 foot model. Now let's get into some spray body discussions here for a moment. I think everyone has probably heard of Rainbird's 1800 series spray bodies. You know, for over 30 years, this spray body has been pretty much the standard in the industry, and it's been the standard because of its durability and its reliability, and its performance is pretty much unmatched. So we started looking at other applications, other potential uses for a spray body, such as dirty water applications. And we wanted to take this spray body to another level, and we developed the RD 1800. You know, that growing demand on the water supply that we were just discussing a little bit earlier, it has really increased our overall reliance on looking at alternative water sources. And as a result of this, you know, pretty much water used for irrigation today is a lot harsher than it's ever been before. So when we started looking at the RD 1800, we wanted to develop those parts to be resistant to corrosion when you're using, you know, treated water that contains chlorine or potentially harsh chemicals. And it's got a very innovative design that handles some of the thickest grit and some of the most dramatic pressure variations without any problem. And it's got some really cool features like triple blade wiper seal that prevents stick-ups, and something called flow shield technology that helps identify problems faster. So let's hit on a couple of these features real quick. In this picture, you see a wiper seal. Now, if we step back a second, and I brought up the 1800 series spray body earlier, basically Rainbird changed the whole irrigation technology when we developed the cold-molded wiper seal over 3 decades ago for the 1800 series spray body. And we really kind of took it to another level with the RD 1800 by adding an additional seal, a third blade. And if you look at the picture, you see a picture of the top seal. Now, the function of that top seal is to flush during pop-up and wipe the stem clean during retraction. And then look at the bottom seal, the primary seal. That primary seal actually combines with the stem surface to eliminate flow-by. But what if a rock or debris or, you know, something's inside of that body that over time eats away at that primary seal? It damages that primary seal. And when we're talking about dirty water applications, there's a high probability of that happening. So if that primary seal gets damaged, what happens? You have excessive flow-by, a lot of water around the stem that basically degrades the entire system. So what we did, we added a third blade. It's an exclusive third blade, and this basically provides an added line of defense in case that primary seal gets damaged. So it's almost guaranteeing you that you're not going to have flow-by. You know, a very unique feature of this spray body is debris pockets. And the debris pockets are located at the base of the spray body. And its function is to basically collect debris and to prevent this debris from recirculating back out through the body. You know, sometimes during system startup, maybe a system was not flushed out properly, or maybe there's just some excess debris in the lines. What these debris pockets do, it just simply traps this. And like I said, it keeps it from recirculating in the body, and thus it prevents it from wear and tear on the body itself. You know, one of the features that really stands out to me is flow shield technology. If you look at the left-hand picture of the popped-up spray, you see a black mushroom-looking device that's inside the nozzle. If for some reason that nozzle were to be knocked off, you know, whether it's vandalism, you know, a lawnmower comes by and knocks it off, there's various reasons. We've all seen this. This black piece actually slides up into the stem. It doesn't completely restrict the flow, because if it restricted the flow, you wouldn't know you had a problem on the line. What it does, it gives you a 15-foot low flow indicator stream so you can see that there's an issue on the site. But what it does, it allows, because it's a low flow indicator stream, it allows you to maintain the integrity of the entire system. Because if it was just a regular spray body, and we've all seen the big gushers that come out when you don't have a nozzle on it, it's actually reducing those gushers by 90%. Now let's talk about pressure regulation for a moment, because it's a key factor in using water wisely. I mean, why is regulating pressure so important with the system? I mean, for me, there's a few reasons that kind of stand out. I mean, for one, Rainbird, and and all manufacturers for that matter, recommend an operating pressure for all their downstream components. So sometimes it's necessary to reduce that supply line pressure to fall within these guidelines. Now, also pressure regulation is needed where, you need to reduce water waste caused by high pressure operation and ensure that nozzle is operating at its maximum efficiency, so you're not getting misting and fogging because of a high pressure situation. And lastly, pressure regulation is needed where there are pressure fluctuations in a water supply. And basically PRS offers a very consistent pressure throughout the entire system. Now, taking a look at the next couple of slides, we see a lot of overspray, a lot of water in areas where it's not intended to go. And I realize there's a lot of factors that go into overspray, but high pressure situations are a huge contributor to this. Like the picture we're looking at right now, you're seeing a lot of misting and fogging. The odds of that pattern getting to where it was intended to go is probably pretty slim. You're either going to have to increase the run times to hopefully put down more water, or you're going to potentially just end up with brown spots and ultimately an end user that's very unhappy. And actually, high water pressure is pretty common. But Rainbird has found a fairly simple solution to solve this. We have found that by regulating high or even fluctuating pressure at the head via pressure regulating stems, we can actually save about 1 gallon per minute for spray and rotor. And yeah, pressure regulation is now available in our rotors. It's available in our 5000 series rotor line. And since water rates tend to continue to climb, customers that are using PRS rotors really can enjoy some pretty considerable cost savings. Even just looking at a typical residential site, using either a 5000 series PRS rotor or an 1800 series PRS spray, they can save approximately 100,000 gallons of water per year. And to kind of put that into context, that's about enough water to fill a swimming pool 5 times over. So how does it do it? Well, it does it by regulating higher fluctuating inlet pressure at the rotor at 45 psi and at the spray at 30 psi. And PRS actually optimizes the flow rate. It allows you to put down less water, It helps to reduce and maybe even completely eliminate the misting and fogging due to high pressure. And it helps to eliminate some of those head-to-head pressure variations that you see sometimes, and really improves the overall distribution and uniformity by making sure that that nozzle is operating at its optimum pressure. And all of these things basically lead to the fact that PRS helps to ensure that the long-term system performance is doing what it's supposed to be doing, because it's minimizing, component wear and tear. Last year, Rainbird developed a marketing campaign, and it ran throughout the entire United States, and we called it Project PRS. And Project PRS was intended to increase awareness of water savings when using PRS sprays or rotors. We even created a website, and it contained material to educate the viewer on PRS savings. And in addition, contractors could go out to this site and submit projects in which they've done installations during this campaign period using PRS heads, whether it's sprays and or rotors, and we calculated their savings for them. And during the course of this campaign, with just the projects that were submitted, we calculated we saved over 215 million gallons of water during this time frame. So this is just another example of Rainbird's commitment to the intelligent use of water. In my opinion, one of the biggest offenders to using water wisely can be a controller. Not always, but it can be. Just basically knowing when to apply water, knowing how to set a run time or start time, or even just knowing that you should be using water-saving devices like rain sensors or soil moisture sensors. So at Rainbird, we feel if we can keep the controller programming as simple and straightforward as possible, as well as offering a very logical path for progressing through the different types of controllers for various applications, then this will really lead to the ultimate goal of using water more wisely. Now let's talk about the ESP-ME for a second. The ESP-ME controller is another example of how we have taken an existing product and made it even better and more efficient. And what we're doing, we're building on the success of the ESP modular controller, its predecessor. We decided to kind of take the ESP modular to another level, further enhance the controller, and make it even easier to program, and increase the station count to 22 stations. Before we were limited at 13 zones. But now that we have this 4 to 22 station scalability, the ME can now better serve both residential and light commercial applications. Now you can still use the 3-station module that you're using with the ESP modular, or you can use this new 6-station module as well. They're interchangeable. Now as far as being priced, it's priced right, because we're seeing an average savings of about 40% over our nearest competition with the ME. And like I said, the feature sets are all very easy to use. The setup features, matter of fact, are even located on Rainbird.com that has corresponding videos for each one of the setup features. So if you have irrigation installer, or maybe it's the end user that just needs to refer back to something, there's always a source they can go to that walks them through the process. One of the things that we see sometimes is that a lot of controllers are rarely adjusted. A system goes in, a new system goes in, a lot of times it's set for that peak irrigation. And unless it's under some sort of maintenance contract, it's rare that controller gets adjusted. And if it's not getting adjusted and it stays at that peak setting all year long, it's applying way too much water. 2 to 3 times too much water. So Rainbird decided to develop a very easy-to-use smart controller. It kind of eliminates some of the problems with not adjusting the controller, or some of the past, poor scheduling issues that sometimes we see. And I think everybody knows Rainbird has vast experience in developing really large-scale central control systems for golf courses, or for commercial applications utilizing products like Maxicom or Site Control. But we've taken all these years of experience, all this knowledge, and we've scaled it down. We've shrunk it down is what we did to a very easy to use smart controller that can be used for a variety of applications. Now it's basically playing off the ESP-ME. It's an upgrade to the ESP-ME. And like the ME, it expands to 22 stations, where before we were limited to 13, and it's putting us in a much better position, not only on the residential level, but to service a lot of different commercial applications now with a smart controller. And it doesn't program like a typical controller. It actually takes in a few factors before it decides whether it's going to water or not. I mean, one is it has a weather station, and it measures both the temperature and the rainfall at the site. And it's not just measuring rain, but it's also measuring the intensity of the rainfall via a tipping rain bucket. And one of the first steps when you go to program the controller is you're entering in a zip code of where the controller is located. And what it does is it downloads historical data like solar radiation or wind speed or humidity. And the third piece of the puzzle that goes into this is making sure that you are customizing each zone. And the reason why you're customizing each zone is because each zone may have different plant types, and different plant types have different watering requirements. So each zone, you're entering in information like soil type or the slope of the landscape or even the plant type. You know, what kind of exposure to the sun does it have, and the kind of sprinklers that you're using on that zone, as well as the root depth requirements. And the controller is taking the data from the weather station and the historical information, as well as all those zone parameters, and it's taking it, and then it will determine if watering is needed. So what you're doing with this controller, you're giving it a watering window on when it can water. You're not setting a time for it to actual water, just a window. So once again, we're taking a potential issue with bad programming or not altering a controller, somewhat out of the hands of the end user, and putting it back into the hands of a very, very smart controller that has been manufactured by someone who has years of experience of creating water-efficient products. Now, I know sometimes it can be pretty challenging getting some people to use some of the latest technology like an SFTE. But when you look at most irrigation controllers, most of them can be upgraded. Most of them can be made smarter simply by using things like weather sensors. You know, whether it's a wired or wireless rain sensor, or maybe it's a soil moisture sensor like the SmartY that's on the slide in front of you. The SmartY is simply a soil moisture kit. It's very, very easy to install. It's a very easy add-on to basically any standard irrigation system. And what it does, it actually directly links your controller to the landscape moisture requirements by relaying this information back to the controller and only allowing a water cycle when that root zone moisture drops below a certain threshold that you set. And it's checking that soil condition every 10 minutes. And it's providing on the display the last 7 irrigation cycles as well. So a device like the soil moisture sensor really helps to eliminate some of this needless watering that we see a lot of. And it lets the soil basically say when the watering is appropriate. It really optimizes the amount of moisture at that root zone. And what we're seeing, at least from an ROI perspective, if you just want to look at it from a cost perspective for a moment, it really conserves enough water in many applications to pay for itself in less than a year. You know, when you talk about water-efficient products, one of the most efficient irrigation methods is through drip irrigation. You know, drip delivers low volumes of water directly to the plant root. And it does it without having to deal with a lot of the factors that we've talked about before. You know, you don't see water loss to wind. You don't see a lot of runoff because you're watering too much, or evaporation or overspray. Rainbird is completely committed to this product category. I mean, we offer over 150 different irrigation products, which is the broadest in the industry. But for today's presentation, I'm just going to touch on two of the products, XFS and XFCV. XFS is a subsurface drip line. You can actually bury this drip line. It has a copper chip with each emitter, and this copper chip helps to prevent root intrusion, and it does it without requiring EPA-approved type handling procedures that some of our competitors require because they're using a chemical in the line or a treated filter to kind of help prevent the root intrusion. That's not needed with the copper shield technology. And with this drip line, you get a dual layered tubing. It's basically copper over black. And what that gives you is a very strong resistance to chemical and algae and of course UV damage. And even the emitter design is very unique. It's unique because it's got an extra wide flow path that is combined with a self-flushing action. And it's a very low profile design as well, which helps to kind of reduce some of that inline pressure loss, allows for some longer lateral runs, which helps by simplifying the design process and certainly helps with reducing some of the installation time. And the type of material used for this tubing is the most flexible tubing in the industry, which really makes this subsurface product very easy to design as well as to install. We really already have hit on some of these bullets in terms of the benefits of subsurface, but if you were just to look at the picture now that you're looking at versus some of the pictures we were looking at earlier that were having some of the pressure issues, you're not seeing any wet pavements. You're not seeing any runoff. You're not seeing any spray being impacted by wind. You're really being able to apply water at a much more efficient rate using this type of product. Now, the other type of drip line I want to hit on quickly is XFCV. XFCV is a drip line with a very heavy-duty check valve. It's a 3.5 PSI check valve that keeps that drip line charged all the time, and it even keeps it charged in elevations up to 8 feet. And what's great about XFCV is that it's part of the overall Rainbird XF family, which simply means that it's the most flexible tubing in the industry. It's actually 20% more flexible than a leading competitor. And I don't think I mentioned this earlier with XFS, but it also offers a self-dispensing coil. And what that means is it's very easy to use this drip line. You can now have one person on the site installing the drip zone because it's much easier to handle and lay and to install. It's also UV resistant. It comes in 0.6 or 0.9 gallons per hour flow rate, as well as a 12 to 18 foot spacing. This next slide I think is probably one of my favorite slides because I love the cartoon. Dude, you are wasting our precious water. As this cartoon suggests, it can be difficult at times to convince certain end users to give up a wasteful water hose. And even those people that may understand the benefits of an automatic irrigation system, they may be hesitant because of costs associated with the products and the installation. And we understand that at Rainbird, and that's why we have developed a line of value-driven products that offer very high quality and very high water efficiency, but at a lower cost. And I'm going to touch on two of these products in that category. The first one I want to touch on is the ESP RZX controller. As we discussed earlier, a controller can either have a positive or a negative impact on the performance of the system. The RZX is a contractor-grade controller that basically maintains a very high level of quality and efficiency as all the other controllers in the Rainbird ESP family, but it's geared towards simplicity for the end user at a lower cost. And the way the programming is designed, it's pretty unique. It offers a zone-based scheduling, which is easier for someone to understand that's not installing irrigation every day. It's much easier for the end user to understand. This zone-based scheduling allows every valve to be scheduled independently. So there's no more explaining programs, which can be sometimes confusing to the end user. It's got a really cool feature called Contractor Rapid Programming. The function of this is that it copies the start times and the watering days from zone 1 to all the remaining zones. So now all you have to do is enter in the run times in the rest of the zones. What it does is it just simply stacks to make the whole process simpler. And if you take a look at the bottom controller in the picture, the outdoor model, I kind of blew up the sticker on the door so you could see it a little better. Basically, we provide a QR code and a website on every RZX controller. And this will take the end user to the RZX web page. And it provides training on the programming of the controller if they need it, or maybe they just need to refer back later to get a refresher, or maybe they just want some general information about the controller. And this controller is very versatile. It's available in a 4, 6, or 8 zone model, as well as indoor or outdoor versions. The other value-driven product I wanted to talk about is the HV valve. Rainbird has taken a very traditional product like a valve, and we've innovated the way it's designed, and we've actually improved its strength while reducing its cost. We've actually reduced the cost to 20% lower than our competitors' list price. And it's made out of a glass-filled polypropylene, which is it's a lighter, stronger material than some of the valves that are made with a PVC type material. And even though it's very lightweight, it's extremely durable. Matter of fact, it has some of the similar flow rates and pressure parameters as some of our higher price valves. And another great feature about this, it really installs and services quickly because it only has 4 screws, and they're multi-drive screws. So you've got a flat, Phillips, or hex option. And the screws are also captive, so they're not going to come out. So that kind of eliminates the problem of, lost or misplaced screws. And even the diaphragm has been redesigned, and it's very unique. It's a slightly off-center diaphragm seat, which allows the diaphragm to close more smoothly. Thus, it's helping to lessen the effect of water hammer. And because of our confidence in this valve, we put a 3-year warranty on it. And just like all the other Rainbird products that we have, they all must go through vigorous testing. And the HV went through the same testing. And we have shown that HV handles 100% more repeated pressure spikes of 200 PSI than our closest competitor. And with life cycle tests, it shows the HV actually exceeding 10 years of operation without failure. So as you can see with these 2 products, and these are just 2 of the products I'm talking about in our value line, we've been able to reduce some cost out of these products, but we're not reducing its effectiveness. We're not reducing its efficiency. We've actually improved it in many cases, and at the same time still being able to offer this at the market at a much lower cost. I want to touch on a new product category that we have recently gone into. For quite a number of decades now, Rainbird has been finding a lot of new ways to use water more intelligently. So when we were considering a new product category, we looked at our core business first, and we just simply asked ourselves, what do we do best? And I think the answer was pretty simple. We move water very efficiently. So for us, the logical next step was drainage. Drainage really complements our core products. It allows Rainbird to offer a complete water management solution now. And that shortage of fresh water supply we've been talking about has really made things like water harvesting solutions very, very important. And it's taken Rainbird a step further in being able to develop ways to capture water and reuse it through irrigation. We have grates and basins and various drainage accessories, and they're all built with that same high quality standard and materials as all Rainbird products. Matter of fact, we even back it up with a 3-year warranty, which is the best in the industry. It's available in 4 different colors. and it's even compatible with some of the most leading manufacturers if you're looking for, just a quick upgrade or possibly, a quick replacement. And a big benefit to contractors purchasing Rainbird drainage is that they get Rainbird points as well. And I know this next slide is fairly busy, and I'm not going to go through everything, but I wanted you to at least have a visual of some of the grates and basins and various accessories that we offer on the drainage side. And drainage is, like a lot of the products I've already talked about, it's just another step, another example of Rainbird's commitment to the intelligent use of water. And Chad, this kind of ends my formal portion of my presentation. If anyone has questions, myself and Greg Palumbo would be happy to answer them.
Okay. Well, Doug, thank you very much for an excellent webinar. And to our attendees on the line with us right now, this is your opportunity to ask questions about anything that was covered in the presentation today. And I see that we have already a couple of folks with their hands raised, so I'm going to go up to you right now. Or maybe you've taken your hand back down. Let me see. Okay, I see one question on the questions page. I'm going to go ahead and cover that. And if you raised your hand, you wanted to raise it again, go right ahead, and I'll make sure that we get to you. Zach Sarkar asks, when can we connect your controllers to the web? Would like to start managing my customers' controllers remotely. We have many clients spread out over a large area.
Okay, good question. We have a product called IQ2, and IQ2 is used with our LXME controller and our LXD controller. And it allows you to communicate, with multiple sites via computer. And if you're asking specifically for a web-based version, there's a lot of different ways that you can access this. But an easy-to-use web-based version of IQ is going to be out shortly. And Greg, do you want to add anything to this?
Sure. So that's a great question. It's something that we get all the time. In one of the areas that we do have products that we communicate with, we've had Site Control and Maxicom that have been out for a long time that allow users remote access through computers. We've taken a lot of that technology and made it even more simple now with products like IQ version 2.0. One of the nice things we've done about the IQ version 2.0 platform is as we build on capabilities to this central control system, we'll have the ability to remotely access and monitor this from a wide variety of devices, including iPads and mobile phones. We're not there yet today, but we anticipate having this technology soon and then scaling it and implementing it down into residential controllers as well.
Good. Thanks very much. All right.
What a great question.
We have another question. Okay. No, sorry, I don't. All right. So for all our attendees on the line right now, this is your opportunity. If you have a question, text it in. You can click on the raise your hand icon on your taskbar, and we can actually open the line up and you can ask the question yourself. So whichever way you prefer, we can assist you. Okay. I'll give you just a little more time to do that before we move on. Zach, thanks for the feedback. Zach says he appreciates your answer, gentlemen. So thank you for that feedback. Okay, question from David Searcy. Are there plans to put flow control in the HV valve?
Greg, you want to answer that one?
Sure. By flow control, you mean a flow control stem, I would assume. And yes, we have that option available. There are models with a flow control stem on it, very similar to what we have in our DV valve. That would be the HVF models of the valve.
Okay. for the answer. Any other questions? Anybody else?
So just to comment again on the actual valves, and one area that I would like to, for the folks still on the line, I'd like to drive people to rainbird.com. We have a tremendous website where there's a lot of information, not just about products, but about applications and technologies that we're implementing into making our products better. A lot of good information on the professional side, on the consumer side, and tremendous amount of literature, manuals, resources, and videos in multiple languages to make sure that we have the materials we need to communicate products performance and expectations to our end users and customers. So I encourage anyone on the line to visit rainbird.com, check out our website, and take a look at all the different products that we have. And this is an example here. So it had a question about flow control valves for the HV series. The model specifically is 100 HVF, high value flow control. 100 is the 1-inch inlet and outlet size.
Good. Thanks for that answer. Comment from John Nation. He says, thanks, guys. Good products.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I'm sure we have a number of your Rainbird customers on the call today, so if anybody has any comments, even if it's unrelated to something that was talked about today, you know, it's an opportunity to do that as folks who use the products in the field. Another question from Zach Sarkar. How smart do you think controllers will need to become?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. How smart do you think controllers will need to become?
I don't know how smart controllers need to become, but one of the things we got to make sure is we're pretty smart in the controllers that we're developing so that we have controllers that are easy to use, so all the smart features we have in there are accessible for broad consumption. What I mean by that is you take a look at the landscape of all the different controller manufacturers are right now and all the different controls that they're touting. One of the biggest challenges are we maximizing the features of any one of these given controllers? And I think that the next advancements that are going to come, and certainly the areas that we're focusing on, aren't necessarily the addition of features, but usability, making the existing features that we have more accessible, convenient, easy to use and program by a wide variety of people with different educations and backgrounds. So the next leap, I think, in this area is going to come in that. Now, talking about the brains of smart controllers, I think the things that we're working on right now on the other side of that is what else can they do? Remote monitoring and sharing of information and communication. So the communications and accessibility from remote sites, handheld devices is going to be key to exchange and use information more quickly to a user, but that requires some manual interpretation and adjustment. So I think the more automated systems are coming and integrating some of the things we're doing with the higher end systems like Maxicom into simple controllers that make those decisions for us. So the brain and the decision-making capacity resides within the controller to a certain extent, like the ESP SMTE.
Good. Thanks for the answer. Next question I have comes from Marcus Botruba, and he asks, is the moisture sensor controller based, or is it controller based or zone based, where it shuts off all zones or an individual zone?
The soil moisture sensor is it is actually zone based.
Okay, so in being zone based, it's going to essentially control that individual zone where it's placed, correct? I mean, there's no. I guess the question is, are the individual zones controlled through the system?
There is the ability to use multiple soil moisture sensors on a site. There is a method now that we can provide with you to put multiple sensors on the site. So if you have different types of soil conditions that obviously will be looked at separately, you now can do these separately opposed to just having that one sensor on the site to control everything.
Good. Thank you.
One of the things with this, one of the other details about the soil moisture sensor we have is the nice thing about our SmartWise soil moisture sensor is it's going to check your soil conditions every 10 minutes, and it's going to consistently, through an interface that's an add-on next to the controller, the existing host controller, it'll display the moisture content, electrical conductivity, and the temperature of the soil. So a lot of information resides within that unit. So if you think about it like a rain sensor, it interrupts the typical continuity of the system. It only allows the irrigation controller to run irrigation when the soil moisture sensor reads that that actual site needs irrigation. And it won't do it by zone, so you won't have a controller that necessarily is able to control by zone with the soil moisture sensor what zone should come on or should come off. But to Doug's point, integration, I guess the limitation is that of the controller. So integration with some of the smarter controller products that we have, you can get that zone by zone control of when things should water and should not water on a zone by zone basis.
Very good. Thanks, gentlemen. All right, I'm not seeing any additional questions at this time, and we are just about out of time for our presentation today. So I want to thank again our presenters, Doug Campbell and Greg Palumbo with Rainbird, and I want to thank all of you who joined us today for the presentation. And I want to remind you that the webinar today was recorded, and after the webinars are done, what we do is we take that recording and we upload it to YouTube, and we send you a link so that you'll be able to log on to the internet and download that particular recording. And we look forward to doing that for you, and also for those folks who signed up for the webinar today but weren't able to actually be on the call. They will also receive that link. So we want to make sure we're covering everybody with the access to the recorded webinar for today. And gentlemen, it looks like I have one more follow-up question. I'll answer this one, but this is the last one for today. And this is a follow-up to the discussion about zone coverage. With multiple sensors, will it go to the next zone before it shuts down?
So they're individually managed is what they are. Every zone will have a sensor as well as an interface board, basically its own power supply. So it's managed. When you're doing it that way, you're managing it zone by zone. So yes, it will go from one zone to the next.
Okay. Very good. All right. Again, thank you everyone for attending today, and thanks to our presenters, thanks to Rainbird. And our next webinar is going to be taking place in September. Mel, could you remind us when that is?
Sure, that is on a different file. That is September 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
September 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time is our next webinar, and Hunter will be presenting at that time. So we look forward to that, and thank you again, and everyone have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.